The truth about medieval orgies. How did the nobility really party? Welcome back to the channel, where we dive deep into the fascinating, often bizarre, and sometimes shocking corners of history. When we think of the Middle Ages, images of pious monks, chivalrous knights, and humble peasants often come to mind. But what about the elite? The powerful nobility who held lavish feasts and commanded vast lands? Today, we re-cutting through the romanticized notions and diving headfirst into a topic that has captivated and scandalized generations: the truth about medieval orgies. Were they really as wild and debauched as popular culture suggests? Or was the reality even stranger? Prepare to uncover the scandalous banquets, skull-goblets, and secret love affairs that reveal how the medieval aristocracy truly indulged. The medieval feast, more than just roast swan. Let's start with the setting. The medieval feast. Forget quiet dinners. These were spectacles of power and excess. While we imagine platters of roasted swan and elaborate pies, these banquets were often chaotic affairs. Nobles would gorge themselves on rich meats, exotic spices, and vast quantities of wine and ale. The sheer volume of food and drink consumed was staggering. It wasn't just about dining. It was a display of wealth and status. Think of it as the ultimate medieval flex. Look at how much I can eat and how many servants I have. But beneath the pomp, the seeds of true indulgence were often sown. Focus on the quantity of food and drink. Drinking to excess, from goblets to skulls? Drinking was not just a pastime. It was an integral part of medieval social life, especially among the nobility. Wine flowed freely, often in enormous quantities. While the image of drinking from human skulls is largely a sensationalized myth, more fitting for Viking sagas or very specific, extreme cults. Medieval drinking vessels could be extravagant, made from horns, precious metals, or even exotic animal parts. The goal was simple: to get profoundly, undeniably drunk. With inhibitions lowered by alcohol, what followed could often blur the lines between boisterous celebration and outright debauchery. The orgia definition. Beyond just sex, here's where we need to clarify what orgies meant in the medieval context. The modern interpretation of a sex-fueled party is often oversimplified. While sexual licentiousness certainly occurred, the term orgia, in its historical sense, often referred more broadly to wild, unrestrained celebrations or rituals. That involved excessive eating, drinking, dancing, and sometimes, yes, sexual activity, but not necessarily the sole focus. Think of it as a spectrum, from a boisterous feast to outright debauchery. The medieval period, especially among the elite, had its fair share of unchecked passions, but the focus wasn't always solely on group sex. Secret love affairs and adultery. Love behind closed doors. Given that medieval marriages were often arranged for political or economic reasons, love affairs and adultery were rampant among the nobility. The strictures of the church condemned such acts, but the reality of courtly life often defied these rules. Knights pledged courtly love to ladies who were often married, leading to passionate, clandestine relationships. These affairs weren't always part of a public orgy, but rather occurred in secret chambers, hidden gardens, or during hunting parties. The thrill of the forbiddance, combined with a lack of genuine affection in official marriages, fueled a culture of infidelity that could easily contribute to the wild atmosphere of private gatherings. The church's stance: sin and punishment. While the nobility indulged, the church was a constant, albeit often ignored, presence. Adultery, fornication, and excessive drinking were all considered mortal sins. Confession and penance were the official remedies, but for the powerful elite, these rules could often be bent or ignored. The church constantly railed against unchaste behavior and excessive feasts, providing us with many of the primary sources that hint at these scandalous activities. Ironically, Their condemnations give us a window into just how prevalent such behaviors might have been. Royal scandals and gossip, the medieval tabloids. Even without modern tabloids, medieval courts were hotbeds of gossip and scandal. Royal mistresses' illegitimate children, and accusations of debauchery were common knowledge within aristocratic circles. Figures like King Edward II and his alleged scandalous lifestyle, or tales from the courts of the French kings, provide glimpses into a world where moral boundaries were often pushed. These were not always orgies in the modern sense, but the sheer volume of personal scandal painted a picture of widespread indulgence and a stark contrast to the idealized image of medieval piety. A bacchanalian influence, echoes of antiquity. It's also worth noting that the Middle Ages were aware of the ancient world. Tales of Romang and Greek bacchanalian revels would have been known, albeit perhaps exaggerated or demonized by Christian chroniclers. This knowledge might have influenced the imagination of the medieval elite, inspiring some to emulate, or at least aspire to, the legendary excesses of antiquity. So, while medieval orgies weren't necessarily direct copies of Roman ones, the concept of extravagant, unrestrained indulgence certainly existed and resonated within their cultural consciousness. Conclusion. So, were medieval orgies a common occurrence of sex-fueled free-for-alls? The reality is more nuanced. While widespread group sex in the explicit modern sense might be an exaggeration, the medieval nobility certainly engaged in extravagant feasts. Excessive drinking, rampant adultery, and unrestrained revelry that pushed societal and religious boundaries. Their orgies were perhaps more about a display of wealth, power, and a rejection of puritanical norms, often fueled by alcohol and the thrill of forbidden desires. It paints a picture of a human nature that, regardless of the era, finds ways to indulge and explore the limits of pleasure. The Middle Ages were far from monotonous, and its elite certainly knew how to throw a scandalous party. Ready for more uncensored history? Did this dive into medieval indulgence leave you wanting more? If you're fascinated by the hidden lives of historical figures and the untold stories of the past, then you're in the right place. Don't miss out on our next historical expose. Subscribe to our channel right now and hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when we uncover another shocking truth from history. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed cutting through the myths and seeing the Middle Ages for what they really were. Leave a comment below and tell us what other historical misconceptions you'd like us to tackle. What era or topic do you think holds the most scandalous secrets?